My comrades, once again, I express my heartfelt gratitude to all the delegates of this 116th National Convention for the honor, the trust, confidence that you've placed in me. And like many of you, I joined the VFW because someone asked me to join when I came home on leave from Korea in 1969. That someone was a World War II veteran who just happened to be my father-in-law, Jack Kinnaman. I joined because someone dear in my life asked me, and I stayed because I found the Veterans of Foreign Wars to be an organization that shares my values of loyalty, honor, and service. Loyalty to country, honor to America's heroes and institutions, and service to our veterans, our military, their families, and our communities and nation. The VFW supports the tenets of a strong nation that espouses the values of freedom and the rights of all to pursue a life of fulfillment. We support the rights of individuals to choose their own destiny, limited only by their personal willingness to work and persevere through hardships. And when I speak about the VFW, I brag about the services we provide, so many, such as thousands of care packages sent overseas to deployed troops that we've never met, supporting first responders during natural disasters at home, promoting patriotism in our schools through the Voice of Democracy and Patriots Pen scholarships, our Adopt a Unit programs that help ensure our troops get a proper send-off, and equally important, a hearty welcome home. The expert assistance provided by our veteran service officers to all honorably discharged veterans seeking to file or appeal a VA claim. And finally, the wise counsel provided by our national and local VFWs to Congress and to state houses across the country. The VFW lifts spirits because we and our families have been there and done that, which is one thought I want to share with everyone. If not for the VFW, who? If not for the VFW, who in our communities will help organize and participate in patriotic salutes to our nation and remember those who served or fell? If not for the VFW, who will promote patriotism in our youth? And if not for the VFW, who will help America's veterans and troops navigate the complex VA claim system or ensure their individual needs are properly taken care of? If not for the VFW, who will be that collective voice on Capitol Hill against all the noise generated by 30,000 registered lobbyists who, other than lip service, don't have the best interest of veterans, service members, and their families first on their agendas? If not for the VFW, is something I hope you will consider deeply, because there are some in our great organization who I believe have lost focus on why we exist. Some think we should be more of a social organization, that the veteran service organization we were created to be. You know, less than 3 miles from here is where members of the Veterans of Foreign Service met in 1914 to adopt the name Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. And today we meet again in Pittsburgh to take stock of ourselves and to chart our course for the future. We must rededicate our goals and objectives to the concept of service that was envisioned by our early leaders when they returned home to an America they felt couldn't relate to their service, and to a government that was often unable and often unwilling to care for their sacrifices. Not believing anyone can relate has been said by every generation of returning veterans, from our founding fathers' wars through Iraq and Afghanistan, and every contingency operation or lousy overseas duty posting in between. But you know, our fathers did something about it. Instead of just complaining about it, they created an organization that welcomed all who would serve in our wars and conflicts. They created an organization that would treat current and future generations with dignity, respect, and regardless of when or where they served. And they created an organization that would do its part to take care of veterans, service members, and their families, and to teach constantly the rest of America about what it truly means to be an American. My challenge is, what are you going to do to keep their vision alive? My challenge is, how are you going to keep their VFW, our VFW, and tomorrow's VFW relevant to the generations of veterans still to come? Comrades, this September will mark 14 years since that horrible Tuesday morning when radical Islamic terrorists hijacked 4 planes and murdered nearly 3,000 Americans in New York City, the Pentagon, and in an open field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, about 80 miles from here. In the ensuing days and years, well over 3 million men and women would raise their right hands to defend America against a new threat. In the ensuing days and years, hundreds of nonprofit organizations would be created to help support the troops, their families, our wounded, and their survivors. That's why the VFW was created, comrades, to take care of veterans, our troops, and their families. But some of these new organizations offered something different: opportunities to get physically involved in their country and their community, from building housing for the homeless to supporting environmental cleanups and staying physically fit through wholesome family sporting events. And these new organizations provided opportunities without any membership requirement or further obligation to participate in future events. Invitations were extended through social media, and event organizers simply learned to adjust on the fly. Our founders wrote about emerging a new era of veterans organization, that the old boys network and the days of the barroom commanders has come and gone. And this is where we're losing our relevancy. We're losing our relevancy with new generation. World War II veterans were generations of joiners, but Iraq and Afghanistan veterans are generations of doers who prefer to get their hands dirty instead of discussing things to death in the monthly meetings. Now, I'm not suggesting that our bylaws and manual of ritual are out of date, but I am suggesting that successful VFW posts recognize and adapt. They learned that in order to catch fish, you have to go where the fish are. Take Post 1435 in Spokane, Washington, for example. Their city sponsors what's billed as the largest 3-on-3 basketball tournament in the world, with 225,000 fans watching 7,000 teams. The Spokane Hoop Fest also has a Team VFW in matching jerseys to prove that we can do more than just sponsor Little League teams. VFW Post 1115 in Hillsville, Virginia, created a Young Guns Committee led by a 2-tour Iraq vet to get the Post more actively and physically involved in the community, as well as a way to create and recruit new members. One of the best challenges is convincing younger veterans about the value of being a VFW member. We have a proven record of 116 years of service to veterans and veterans advocacy. We're like an insurance policy that you may never need, but one that still continues to help those in need. Take VFW Post 7369 in Naples, Florida, for example. They took it upon themselves to restore part of a civilian cemetery after the graves of nearly 70 veterans were discovered hidden in the underbrush. The success of America was built on the service and sacrifice of many Americans, but our continued freedom falls squarely on the shoulders of those who wear the uniform. Everyone in the VFW understands that, but unfortunately, as our nation's population continues to increase and the size of our military continues to shrink, the rest of America doesn't get it. That's why I need you. I need you to continue to tell America's story so that it's not lost to rewritten history books by authors who never served, or worse, by authors who just don't care. Here in Pennsylvania, the saying, "freedom isn't free," means something. My state has the nation's 4th largest veterans population, yet no active duty military installations to think of. It has the largest VFW department membership with 87,000 members. We know that it requires the citizenry to secure and maintain the blessings of liberty for themselves, their families, and their nations. And we know that patriotism is not a short demonstration on the 4th of July. It's a lifelong commitment. America may have its faults, but no country has done more for the world than the United States of America. We are a shining example to those who desire to live in freedom and opportunity. And I need you to continue telling the VFW story of loyalty, honor, and service, how we were founded to serve others, and how we'll continue to extend a helping hand to all veterans, service members, and their families. And don't forget to recognize the work of our own volunteers as well as others. That's why we present national awards during this convention. And that's why you should recognize in your own communities, especially local VA volunteer helpers, who often touch more lives in a day than others do in a lifetime. Never pass up the opportunity to give a hearty handshake and thank you from the VFW. And never pass up the opportunity to let people know that the VFW stands for a strong America. Serving others is my #1 goal, but right behind that is a strong and vibrant membership. A strong membership opens doors in Washington, but not just because you're veterans, but because you vote in every congressional district. We may not always vote for the same candidate, but every candidate knows that we stand for a strong nation and we stand strong for veterans. That's right, we do. As I previously mentioned, we compete in Washington against 30,000 registered lobbyists who see the world differently. That's why a strong and engaged membership is so important on Capitol Hill and in your state legislatures. I wish to congratulate the 17 departments who exceeded 100% in membership this past year. And I also wish to salute the 7 women veterans who will serve as department commanders in the coming year. I encourage all of you to reconsider how you can and must evolve to maintain your relevancy in this new millennium. I need everyone to reflect on the future of the VFW and the challenges that our nation faces. And first and foremost, our overseas conflicts are not over, and our government faces a return to mandatory sequestration that threatens not only our nation's readiness and security, but every military quality of life program that the VFW helped create. And I hope in my year as Commander-in-Chief, It will be remembered as a year of renewing our pledge to the VFW's commitment of service. We need membership to stay strong and support our numerous programs, and to remain relevant in Congress and America. We also need departments, districts, and posts to create more opportunities that better serve our nation's veterans and military communities. You know, here in Pittsburgh, the VFW teamed up with academia, industry, and the nonprofit world to create an organization called Pittsburgh Hires Veterans. I hope many of you took the opportunity to visit their convention booth. The idea behind Pittsburgh Hires Veterans is simple. We match veterans who are seeking jobs and careers with employers, companies who, at last count, have hundreds of vacancies in manufacturing. What we aren't doing in Pittsburgh is relying on the federal government to solve our local issues. We've taken it in hand ourselves. I also highly encourage you to reinvest in the VFW programs and services that benefit veterans and service members and their families. Yes, some of us can generate large sums of money that benefit local communities. All I ask is you to remember that the VFW charities are important. After all, charity begins at home. In closing, I'd be remiss if I didn't rededicate our support to the government's full accounting mission to the families of the 83,000 American MIAs and to the dedicated troops and DoD civilians who perform these investigations and recoveries in some of the most arduous places on earth. I had the opportunity to visit with many of them earlier this year in Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam, and I still cannot adequately express my pride in their commitment to return America's fallen to their families. Comrades, that's my VFW, a VFW that is recognized for great work we do, whether it's championing veterans' issues on Capitol Hill or simply shaking hands of American MIA searchers at the bottom of a muddy Vietnamese mountain in a torrential downpour. What our founding fathers knew a century ago has not changed. Action speaks louder than words, and action will lead the way for our great organization. I ask all of you to reach out to your friends, your families, and communities, and have them join us in a recommitment to our nation and to a new generation of young men and women who serve her. Someone has to be America's conscience to keep patriotism and the history of our great country alive. Someone has to ensure we are strong and safe and secure. And someone has to make sure our nation's commitment to those who serve her in uniform never fail. With your support, comrades, I'm proud to say that someone will be the men and women of the veterans of foreign wars of the United States. May God bless our great country and our organization. And remember, no one does more for veterans than the veterans of foreign wars of the United States. Thank you.
Well done.